Hey.
And
Hi.
hey, good morning. All right, so we're doing a real hangout, so I can turn control over to you.
Okay. Um,
We just kind of start at the top and kind of walk through the architecture of the app and what's at the input and the output and how you run it locally.
okay. Let me start screen sharing then.
Yep.
Okay, so let me make sure I'm presenting to everyone. Um, so let's see. So this is the app as it's running now. Um, it
And
does
is that
show.
running as an app, as a list of static files with a web server?
It's actually running with a very simple web server through Gulp that supports live reload. Um, but if this was it's effectively the same thing as a static file listing on S3 or any real web server. Um,
So that means that the end result of this would be essentially a series of web pages or a single file. I mean, how do we actually deploy this thing?
okay, so let's look at the source. The actual source is a CSS file, a vendor.js, and an app.js, and you drop them on a server with this index HTML. It's very simple.
Okay, what are those different files? The CSS is presumably the styles.
App is Zerb and everything. Vendor is all the plugins. So look at the whole file. Um, a few things that are included, recommended with um, Zerb Foundation. Is it easier if my colors are light or dark for you to see them?
This works okay.
Okay. Lodash, jQuery, and the router is called page.js.
Okay, so
Um,
we're using so of those things, the things that are custom is just the page, or is that something? Is that something that we actually use from somewhere else? Is that something you wrote?
No, these are all the vendor indicates that it's somebody else's code that we
Gotcha.
include.
So we're basically using the Bower and the vendor stuff rather than Browserify and whatever we were doing before.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
It's it's more well, it the benefits are, you know, anyway, it's not conclusive whether or not it's better or worse, but it's also
It was the
not
simplest thing that would get us to where we are now.
right. Perfect. Okay, and then there's app.js, which includes all of our coffee files, which are inside of our source directory.
Which we
Um,
will do shortly, I guess.
So if we look at tree of source, um, we've got in our we've got some HTML, which really these will be probably gone by the time that it's really working. We probably won't even have home in question. We'll literally just have index.html
Mm-hmm.
because all the rendering will happen in here. Two CSS files, and then a bunch of controller or a bunch of coffee.
Right. Okay.
So um, I actually did end up recreating a world class
Ah.
um, because of the idea of piping.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very simple sort of class, and all it does is it holds whatever you want it to do, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and it gives you a get and a pipe method. Um,
Okay.
you can have these classes that essentially are just wrappers around an object,
Mm-hmm.
but you can, call pipe and send them into something else. Um,
Mm.
if that works for you. So I use that in an integration test here. Uh, this is one of my integration tests, and what it does is we create a new interpreter, this question interpreter with this question information, and then
Mm-hmm.
we pipe it into the layout.build function, and then we get HTML or we get elements out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So the basic, like the core class of this right now is the Swan Kiosk layout. Everything is namespaced under Swan Kiosk.
Great.
Swan Kiosk layout. It takes JSON configure, or JSON objects, and generates HTML out of them. So layout.build tag div contents. We'll make a div with, or maybe we'll make a UL with 3 LIs. Tag li. One.
Like live coding.
There we go. Okay, and that actually gives us, these are actual HTML elements.
HTML meaning that they're in the DOM?
No, they're not in the DOM yet. They haven't been added yet.
Okay,
But they are.
From JavaScript's perspective, they are of type HTML element.
Yes, and so this allows us to add like events to them, and any kind of class property we could want. So we can do style, and that can be an object, max width 500. If we want to do something like that, and then we'll have this guy style.
So tag and contents are special, and everything else is just passed straight through as an attribute.
The only other one, so there's two other special ones. Contents tag, raw HTML.
Okay.
If the contents of your, like if I go in here and try to build contents be hello, if I wanted to put an HTML tag in there, which we might want to, this was what I was thinking might be useful in Markdown situation maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Right now it escapes everything, but if I turn raw HTML on,
okay.
Oh, I cased it wrong. If I use the raw HTML, then I can actually put in.
Yes.
That.
Okay.
The other. Sorry.
So yeah, those were more magic tag.
There are two other special tags. The style tag. You can, by default, if you pass in a tag that it doesn't recognize, like data. It will dasherize every attribute that you put in, because HTML attributes are always dasherized. So if you wanted to put in like data info, you can actually just drop any random JSON dictionary in here. It will, and it'll just serialize it to JSON as info. So that's sort of anything that you put in there. If it's a string, it'll be put in as a string. If it's an object, it'll get serialized. If the key is style, like I just demonstrated, it will actually get CSSified.
Gotcha. That's the distinction.
And if the key is events, they will not be attached as attributes, but as handlers.
Right. Okay. So style and events are really the two magic things. Because,
right. So, like this page that you're looking at right now looks like this. Is how it's this is the source it's generated from.
Right.
It's got an A tag, href, to go to questions and start questions. We click on it, we're gonna take it to the first question. So that's sort of one of the building blocks is the layout engine. Another one that we had discussed is the interpreter. So I can show you the interpreter. So this is a question interpreter.
And what is get supposed to be here?
So get in this case is like gets the output of the object.
Okay, is that let's actually look through this. So this is a um, CoffeeScript class.
Mm-hmm.
And we're doing extends. Okay, so they're all worlds. And then the header is a closure. Okay. Actually, can you walk me through kind of the first few lines, kind of talk through what they're doing?
Sure. I mean, these are just. This is a like a Ruby pattern right here.
Okay.
Actually, I mean, it's not really a Ruby pattern. Ruby has nicer syntax for it than any other
It's
language.
like or equals. So it means basically set the method header to be the variable header, or
It's basically
cache
only
the
run this function once. Cache the value, yes.
value.
So
There's a word
header.
for that, right?
Say it again.
There's a word for that, isn't there?
Memo wise,
Memoize. Thank you.
right? So don't run it twice, but
Okay.
it just creates a header, which should be above the body. It creates a header and a body and a navigation. And then it makes use of these other components here, which are just functions that return other objects. So
especially essentially helpers.
right, essentially helpers. Yeah. So this one, vertically centers whatever's passed into here. The vertical. This is
Just
sort
as
of
a side note, it looks like they're, and I don't know if it's just as a future thought, it feels like there's a certain, like there ought to be a way to meta program this thing since there's a lot of redundancy in the structure, but maybe that's another layer later.
yeah.
Anyway, okay, and so okay, I'm still, and then so we define those methods, header, body, navigation, and then the get is kind of the it's basically a list of all the things that are created. So that'll be essentially the output.
Yes, I mean get is the output of the object. So what it actually, when you actually want to use it, it is an array
All those things.
with three, yeah,
Children, okay.
right. So what that looks like in, let's see, controller. This is the questions controller here that actually receives the actions.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go to questions 0, that runs this show action, and the params is controller action ID. So right now our ID is 0.
Oh, right. Okay. So it generates the interpreter object, and then just calls gets on it, and then returns
Right.
That's actually going to be HTML objects finally at the end.
So the way that this works when you have actions that run inside a controller context is they return, and then whatever they return will get passed by default to render, which runs the layout.build on the contents, and then appends it to whatever you define as your body tag, which in this case is body. Otherwise, you can do anything. We could have this just go in, and as long as you mark it as having rendered,
Okay.
it'll do that instead. But otherwise, it'll take whatever is the return value of the function and build a layout out of it.
Cool. So this is our little layout engine. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, that's really our. Random question: is this MVC or is this something different?
It's effectively kind of. I mean, it's very similar to an MVC idea.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I guess you could say it is. It's just that it really, I guess, the most interesting thing that we have is a bizarre templating engine.
Right. Right. We have a dynamic templating engine that is essentially a interpreting. well, it's document-oriented. What do we call it? Document-oriented programming, or
Document-based. I thought it was document-based programming.
document-based programming. Okay, yeah. So document-based programming, where we are starting with a document and then running it through a series of interpreters and transformations to generate HTML.
And so far, we don't really have any models.
Right.
No. Right now, we're pretty much just that.
Right. It's document controller layout.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I am sort of implementing a controller pattern.
Right.
Um,
have you ever built your own web framework before?
Nope. No. I was gonna do the router myself too because it seemed fun, but I realized it was gonna take too much time, and I should just use somebody else's.
Cool. Great. Beautiful code. Yeah. This looks like it's right. It's solving the problem at hand and expressing the values and technical vision that we are aspiring towards. So very, very cool. Okay. So question 2. In an hour, we want to give a demo to a potential customer. What's the shortest path to having something that they can click on?
Not dealing with local storage and just storing the results in an object and then showing them. Just sort of having a little interpreter that shows results in a table and says, these are the questions and this is what you answered.
Okay. And is that something we can do in an hour, you think?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I have one thing that I needed to talk to you about that I noticed earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Questions should not be an object because objects in JavaScript are not ordered. So there's technically no guarantee that those will stay in order. Which
I was going to ask you about that.
I've never seen a JavaScript implementation that doesn't keep them in order.
Okay.
You need an object like that. I've never seen one that doesn't. But you are technically not supposed to do that just because it might blow up in your face and someday, somehow, all your questions might be out of order.
So let's just see. Okay, yeah, this is the question here. Right? Does JavaScript?
So what I would recommend instead is that you choose some kind of key that denotes its ID. Maybe just ID is an okay key.
Just key.
Or key, yeah. But have them in an array because that's the only way that they can technically be ordered in JavaScript.
Right.
I don't really need you to change that right now.
Yeah.
Actually, I mean, you could change it in the FPH one, because I'm playing with the keys config right now.
Right.
If you change that in the next hour, you'll break what I'm working on, and that will
right. So we don't. So the let's just create a issue for that.
Okay. Perfect. Yes.
Is okay. Second question I had while we were on that was, should we be doing, so I was thinking about the different kind of types of inputs we're going to have. And so right now we just have the select key, which generates the multiple choice thing. Is it better to have some sort of like input key to flag that this is an input and then have, subtypes or some other way of keying off of it, because it feels like that's going to. And that was the other thing I was thinking about. You mentioned how the dictionary attributes are passed through when you do the layout engine. Should we have a similar mechanism where I could be specifying ideas in the, I guess at the CSON level, config file level, that are passed through? And long way of saying, it seems like there's a bunch of different input types that we're going to need.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them will be fairly generic, HTML elements like a text field or a text area. And some of them will be fairly complicated things like date pickers and so forth. Any thoughts about the best way to start encoding that information, or is that something we just have to experiment with a couple and see where we end up?
Um, best way to encode that information. I mean, to me, like it seems like you could just have maybe well, I thought we'd discuss maybe the kind key as being something that denotes, something more significant than tag, right? So tag is sort of generic if you're building it. Maybe kind actually just maps to a component, and then it gets passed into a component and says, hey, you take care of this and tell me what it's supposed to be.
Right. Okay, that's right, because that'll just be so that select becomes a component.
Sure, yeah.
Which is not right now. Okay.
Mhm.
Interesting. Okay. Um,
Actually, that would be the interpreter's job, not the layout engine. The
right.
layout engine just creates objects, but that would be an interpreter. As soon as you pass it through an interpreter, the interpreter sort of superclass will have in its code, it will necessarily check for kinds and replace them with real component, like replace them with valid markup.
So what exactly? Where are the components? Could you go back real quick and just show me like where the components are loaded or discovered or who knows about them?
So the one thing that is different right now for the sake of speed and clarity is that there's really very little in terms of scope management.
Sure.
Everything is under the Swan PS header, and technically everything is available to everyone except instances. Everyone has their own instances of stuff, but the actual classes are available to everyone. So given that the components are just functions, they're available to everybody.
So components right now are just methods on the components class or object name.
Just an object, or namespace even, whatever. It just
right. That's actually a dictionary, right?
It is a dictionary, and it just has methods.
Right. So this is right, and these are all just glommed together into a single namespace or a single thing. And those names are resolved. How are they resolved? Like, how do so right now I'm actually calling them manually.
Yeah, like right here.
They're basically they're hard coded into the system. Okay, so one could imagine having a more loose coupling system where it's essentially interpreting those in some configurable way.
Yeah, you could. Okay.
Because the idea would be that we want to have, we want it to be really painless to add new components.
Right.
And then have, essentially that's how we extend our language.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, we'll save that as a, I'll give myself an extra.
And I mean, going forward to, I think sort of the quote-unquote right way to do this would be to just have a components folder inside of our coffee folder and have each component have its own file.
Right. Well, we'll also what I really want to get to is the point where our kiosk config files can define a component. Right.
Sure.
You want to be able to abstract up your. Abstract out the. You want to be able to create new abstractions, right? That's what makes this programming rather than just a config file, but not urgent. So what's urgent is getting the app to generate a result, so you can kind of walk through that, and getting it up onto a server somewhere. Do you have access to the S3 site for this?
I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty sure that I still have
the login keys
for the Hour of Node. But I can also put it on GitHub pages.
As a
yeah.
if that's quicker than fighting through. So what is the? Yeah, I have the worst time figuring out what's happening with our. I can get. So I just created the. Are you able to log? Do you have the username and password to log into the S3 management console?
I actually don't have a username and password. I just have like credential files that were in my SSH directory.
Right. I guess which do you think would be faster for me to just send you the S3 stuff so you can put it there and configure it, or just throw it up on GitHub pages?
Probably GitHub pages.
Okay. So the goal is for you to send me a URL by 11:30 with something.
All right, let's
Okay.
do this.
Okay, I will leave you with that, and maybe you can give me a quick call at 11:30 or whenever you think you have something. All right.
Cool.
All right.
All
Thanks for
right.
your work. Really proud of you, man.
Thanks. All right. Bye.